Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May no one suffer from illness. May all see goodness everywhere. May no one suffer in this world. May there be peace, abiding peace everywhere by God's grace. Good evening, friends. The subject of my talk this evening is the glory of motherhood. I was fortunate to have been born in a country where mothers are adored. It may not be known to other people of other nations, but I was born in India and in a culture which others call Hindu culture, but our ancestors did not know the word Hindu. They would call themselves Aryas. Aryas means noble people. The word Hindu was invented by the British when they ruled India for about 200 years. And that's how the word Hinduism came. But our ancestors did not know that word at all. And they would call their religion Arya Dharma, the religion of the noble people. The idea was that they have to be noble, all of them. And a noble person must have certain noble qualities also. And one of those qualities is that that person should have great adoration and respect for his or her mother and his or her father, his or her teacher, or his or her guests. In those days, all young people, when they would be about 12 years old or so, had to go to the teacher's home and live there. Live there for about 12 years. And there they would learn many things. They would learn the scriptures, they would learn how to behave with others, and all those things. And that would be called Guru Griha Vasa. That is living in the house of the teacher. Then there, after staying for about 12 years, when the teacher would think that the student has learnt whatever the teacher had wanted to teach, then he would bid farewell to that student. And he would say to the student, Matrideva bhava, Pitrideva bhava, Acharya deva bhava, Atithi deva bhava. What do they mean? Matrideva bhava means look upon your mother as God. Pitrideva bhava, look upon your father as God. And look upon your teacher as God, Acharya deva bhava. And look upon your guests as God. But first comes the position of the mother. Highest position. And these teachings are there in that scripture called the Taittiriya Upanishad. In that part of that Upanishad, which is called Shikshadhyaya. That is the chapter connected with education. So you have to look upon our mothers as God. And mother's position is the highest. Then father. Then the teacher. And then the guests. They all have to treat it as God. Also, there are teachings like Janani Janma Bhumischa Swargadapi Gariyasi. That is the mother and the motherland where you are born. They are superior even to heaven. So mother's position is very high. When I was a very young boy, I had this question in my mind: why am I born here? What is the purpose of my birth here? I don't know whether others had such questions in their minds or not, but I had them. And that question would perturb my mind. Eventually, I learned that I was born in order to attain perfection. And perfection is another name of divinity. So, the divinity which is in all of us, that has to be experienced. That's why we are born. And this thought would come to my mind frequently when I would go out for a walk, even as a boy. Then this thought would come. So I asked my mother this question. She was available. And she said, "My child, you have many questions." So there was a boy like you in Europe, and his mother said to him, "My child, read and then you will know." So following my mother's advice, I became a member of a children's library, and there I tried to find the answer to my question, but I couldn't find the answer. Eventually I found a book to buy which I didn't have to pay anything. That was the book of my own mind. And from that book I gradually came to know that I had come to this world to attain perfection. That means by manifesting divinity which is in me. After getting my degree in the college, I had to take my mother to the holy city of Benares. She was very religious minded, spiritually advanced, and she wanted to visit that city. And my father said, "Take her there," and she wants to visit that holy city of Varanasi. So that's how I got to know some places in Varanasi. And one of them was the Dashashwamedh Ghat road. That is a street named Dashashwamedh. And I had a dream after that one day. There I saw myself walking down that Dashashwamedh Ghat road. The road was empty except that on the other end another lady was coming. By seeing her, somehow I had that impression that she was my mother in my previous incarnation. And she came to me. She was a sannyasini, a nun. And she came, and with great, and at that time also I was thinking, why have I come to this world this time? Then she came to me, and with great motherly affection, she stroked my head and said, "My child, you have come this time to do one thing, and you don't have to come to this world ever again. And you have to go to a foreign land and preach religion." She said that with such sincerity that I was impressed in the dream by her words. Then the dream was over. Then I thought, what a strange dream I have had. I would go and preach religion. That was not my goal. My idea was to help the poor people of India. by self-sacrifice and all that. That was my idea. Then a friend of mine named Mihir Shaha came to see me. Then I told him about that dream. Hearing that, he said, who knows, this dream may come true. I said to him, never. Such a dream can never come true. But eventually he joined the Ramakrishna Order first, and then I joined the Ramakrishna Order of monks. It was God's bidding that I had to. And then that statement made by that sannyasini in my dream, that came true. I am now in a foreign land. And she also said, you don't have to be born again. This is your last incarnation. And she was my mother in my previous incarnation. That's also I came to know at that time. So I was born in a country where mother's place is the highest. In Varanasi, I was talking about Varanasi, that holy city. And there are some staircases built on the bank of the river. Those are called ghats. People could use those staircases and go down to deeper water of the river and have a bath. And that river is the holy river Ganga. So it is considered very sanctifying in such birth. So there is a ghat like that in Banaras or Varanasi, and it is called Dasashramedh Ghat. And there is a temple at the bank of the river. The temple is made of stone and other things, but half of that is sunken into that river. Then I asked someone, why is the temple built this way? Half of it is sunken. Then I was told that the person who built the temple, he had money, and he built that temple, and he said, now I have repaid the debt to my mother. He was very indebted to his mother, but when he said, I have repaid my debt to my mother, and this temple is a symbol of my feeling. Just when he thought that, the temple sank. Half of the temple sank. That means we can never pay our debt to our mothers. That is the teaching. Nobody can repay mother's debt. And mother's love for her children is the highest form of human love. Yes. And women are born to be mothers. Here in Seattle, there was a young girl. She was quite brilliant, and she went to the university and got some degree, master's degree in a certain subject. And she used to come to our Vedanta Center in Seattle. Very good girl. And then one day she came to me and said, Swamiji, I want to marry. I said, why should you marry? You are quite happy as you are. Then she said, no, I want to be a mother, she said. This instinct is there in the hearts of women. The women want to be mothers. I asked, why do you want to be mothers? I want to have children, she said. And when a mother has children, then her heart flows towards those children. So mother's love for her children is the highest form of human love. Sri Ramakrishna, who was a divine incarnation and whose picture you can see behind me along with the books. And Sri Sarada Devi's picture is also there. She is also considered a divine incarnation. Sri Ramakrishna, when he was about 50, he said to Sri Sarada Devi, now time has come for me to depart from this world. Because by that time, few people had recognized Sri Ramakrishna to be a divine incarnation. So he said, a king puts on a disguise in order to help his subjects. So he wants to help the subjects. But when the subjects get to know that he is a king in disguise, then the king cannot use that disguise. The king has to go back to the palace. So some people are recognizing me as a divine incarnation. So it is time for me to depart from this world. Then Sri Sarada Devi said, who was a spiritual consort of Sri Ramakrishna, she said, you will go away, then what shall I do? Then Sri Ramakrishna said, what I have done is but little, you have to do much more. And what is that much more? Sri Sarada Devi came to shower her motherly compassion on all. She used to say, I am the mother of the good and I am the mother of those who are not good. Everybody was her child. And in India, women are highly respected. That is not known to some people who belong to other nations. Particularly the Hindus, they have the greatest respect for their mothers. And Sri Ramakrishna was a divine incarnation. He had a few disciples, a very small number. They were all saints. One of them was Swami Turiyananda, otherwise known as Hari Maharaj. And Swami Turiyananda, when he was a child, maybe around 2 years old or so, then his mother was bitten by a rabid fox, as a result of which she died. That fox had come to attack this, her child, who later on became Swami Turiyananda. And to save her child, Hari Maharaj's mother wanted to obstruct the rabid fox, and the fox beat her a few times, as a result of which she died. But Hari Maharaj lived on. So mothers, they are willing to give their lives to save their children. And I was very lucky to have been born in a family where my mother was saintly and my father was also saintly. I saw many wonderful qualities in them. And my mother was like an universal mother. Like a universal mother. And anyone who would come to her would become her child. So our neighborhood had some families, and all those families were treated as one family by my parents. And they would give service to the people there. And so many people would come to our home every day and eat lunch and dinner with us. and at my parents' invitation. And so as I told you, my mother was very motherly. See, the neighbors, had they had any difficulty, she like a mother would go and help. She would send food and other things through me. I was a boy at that time, to other people's homes because they needed food. Such was my mother. I was lucky to have been born. And also, I learned that mother and father have to be adored like gods. So, every day I used to salute my mother. And also my father. But my father would sometimes go to work leaving behind his second pair of shoes, and I would salute those shoes before going to school. So that's how I used to adore my parents. And if any person does not treat a woman respectfully, then others will say to that person, "Why are you behaving this way? Don't you have a mother and a sister? You should not behave." And in India, in the trains and buses, there are ladies' seats, special seats for them. So, my mother was everybody's mother. When I came to this country, because my monastic order wanted me to come here to serve the children of God in this country, then I read in the newspaper one news. And newspapers always write something which is sensational. So that news was about a stray cat in Brooklyn near New York. What had happened was a house was on fire and the stray cat had its kittens inside that house. And when the fire was on, then the stray cat a few times entered that house and brought its kittens outside to safety. So that was big news. And the last few years of my mother's life were spent in the holy city of Benares. She wanted to, after my father's passing away, she wanted to live there. It is believed by the Hindus that is those who die in Benares, they experience divinity after their death. No matter what the reason, my mother was there. And she had, at that time I was a monk, and sometimes I would go to visit our centers in Benares. There were two centers. One was a hospital center, because our monastic order runs some charitable institutions in India also, such as running hospitals, etc. And the other one, of course, was a temple. So I had to go sometimes in connection with my work. I was at that time at the headquarters. And that's where my order brought me to do certain work. And then I had occasions when I had to go to Benares. And there I came to when I would go to Banaras, I tried to see my mother also. She lived nearby. And got to know one of my mother's friends. That friend of my mother was also of her age almost. Then when I went to see my mother, I saw her. And I used to call her auntie. And I had read that the bereavement at the children's death is unbearable pain, causes unbearable pain to the mothers. In Sanskrit, that is called putra shoka. That sadness which comes to the mother's heart when the child has died. And I had heard from my mother that auntie had a child, little child, maybe 2 or 3 months old, and who had died. So I thought, why not I ask her whether that pain of bereavement was really unbearable. Then I said to her, you had a child, that child died when the child was 2 months old or something. So, what kind of pain you had at that time? And when I said that to her, her appearance changed. She started shedding tears and said, oh, this unbearable pain is coming again to my heart. She was overwhelmed with that pain. Then I said to her, auntie, please forgive me. I won't ask you this question again. Be your usual self. So, such is mother's love. And she had lost her child when the child was only about 2 months old. And in India, when I was a Swami, I had to go from our headquarters to the city of Calcutta to do some official work. The headquarters would send me there. And there I had to go by train because our order did not have money at that time. Now the order has some money, but at that time it was poor. So I had to go by train to the city of Calcutta, which is a few miles away from our headquarters in India, which is in Belur Math, that place. And then we had to go by train and then come back to Belur Math by train. So one day the order had sent me to do some work in the city of Calcutta, and having done that work I had to return to the headquarters where I was there at that time and working. And then when I was in the train, I had to travel by 3rd class because we didn't have money to go by higher classes. And that compartment was packed by people. And I had a handbag in which I had some books and office records. I needed that to go to do that work in Calcutta. And then I put that on the floor and there was no room to sit there. And I was surrounded by people. Most of them were standing. And there was a young woman, much shorter than what I was. And she was married, because in India you can know whether a Hindu woman is married or not, because she wears a kind of vermilion mark on her forehead. By seeing that we know that she is married. and she deserves more respect. And then one woman was standing next to me, and then the railway station was coming where I had to detrain. And so the bag which I had put on the floor, I had to pick it up. And while trying to pick it up, my head touched the forehead of that young woman, married woman. And then a little bit of that vermilion from her forehead came to my forehead. And she was extremely embarrassed because she knew that I was a Swami. Then I said to her, you don't have to be embarrassed. The vermilion from the mother's forehead has come to the son's forehead. And when I said that, she was at ease. Because in India, we would address all women as mothers. Even a young girl would be addressed by us as mothers. We are monks. When I was sent to this country, I didn't know how to address women in this country at that time. So I addressed one of our members who was a lady who used to come, and I addressed her as a mother, and that embarrassed him very much. Then I came to know that here it is a different story. That means the women don't want to be addressed as mothers. So, great respect is given to mothers in that culture in which I was born. So the teaching is, look upon your mother as God. Not just that, look upon your father as God. Look upon your spiritual teacher as God. And look upon your guest as God. Everyone is God. And this reflects that those great sentences which are there in our scriptures, called Mahavakyas, great sentences. They all teach the divinity of everyone. Tattvamasi, you are divinity. Aham Brahmasmi, I am also divinity. Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, everything is divinity. I am Atma Brahma. That's something which I call my soul. That is also divinity. These are the highest truths that are there in Hinduism. I was lucky to have been born in that culture. And our duty is to experience the divinity. Once we experience the divinity, we are not born again as human beings or other beings. Then we become one with divinity. So, motherhood is a glorified thing. When I first came, one American girl came to see me privately. And she said to me, how should I look upon God? I thought she must have been born as a Christian. So I said to her, and Christians look upon God as Father. I said, look upon God as Father. Then she said, I can't do that. I said, why not? She said, my father was mean to me. Then I said, then look upon your God as your mother. She said, my mother was also mean to me. So she could not do that either. I was amazed to hear that that girl looked upon his parents as mean people. Then I said, then can you look upon God as friend? Yeah, she said, yes, I may try, I may give it a try. And that was the last time I saw her. Then I realized that this culture was different. It is not the same culture that we had in India, where motherhood is glorified. Mother is looked upon as God. Parents are looked upon as God. God, according to Hinduism, is formless, but we assign forms to that formless God. God is like the grey sky of Seattle. Seattle has a grey sky because it rains a lot. And we all are looking at that grey sky through some colored eyeglasses. And each one is equipped with a mind, which mind is a pair of colored eyeglasses. So, the mind projects a personality on God. The mind cannot think of infinity. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That means the divinity is infinity. Anantam. So, when I try to think of that infinity, our finite minds project some limitations on that God. And said the one limitation is personality. So personality of a father or a mother or a child, all these are projected, those personalities are projected on that divinity, which is formless, it is beyond time, space and causation. And if we project motherhood on God, then we feel very close to her, God, because we grow up getting the motherly love. Who is like a mother? Matrideva Bhava. Mother is God. And also Father is God. Pitrideva Bhava. Everyone is God. So let us remember all these things. I am thankful to all of you because you have come to listen to the talk that I gave this evening. May the blessings of God be upon us, and may we all feel very close to God by looking upon God as either mother or father. Yes. Thanks to all of you.